Thank you guys for coming in today. This is our third episode of A Smith Podcast. And I have to say that you guys have stuck by my side this whole time, and I absolutely love it. I love coming on here for my live streams to do this because you guys, for one, this is brand new to me. It helps me open up and it kind of helps me get a gist of what people want to hear more of. For today, we're going to talk about your mama. And we're going to talk about my mom. We're going to talk about moms, absent moms. Moms are very vital into the creation of life. Everybody has a mom. In order for you to be, she had to be. Just like they're vital to the creation of life, they hold a very important position in life. In order for you to truly feel that unconditional love in life, usually that comes from your mom. That's the first place that it comes from. Your mom's your foundation, your first teacher, your emotional anchor, and a lifelong advocate. If you don't have those things in life, it could be really difficult for you just to live your life with the absence of that because she is your foundation. So what happens when you don't have a mom? What happens when your mom leaves you? Obviously, you struggle. You have trust issues, abandonment issues, low self-worth, emotional dysregulation, and mental health struggles. I didn't realize, I always thought that I was just a little bit screwed up. And then I realized that a lot of this stemmed from my mom's situation. So there's a lot of long-term effects like loss and grief and just that longing for your mom. Because I feel like that is just an intense loss. Not that any other loss is less than, but this loss it's deep. It also affects you in parenting. It gives you a bit of a fear of parenting. I didn't think I was afraid of parenting. I feel like I wanted to have kids because I wanted that solid crew. Because she left, it made me feel like if I created my own crew that I would never be alone and I'd always have people that wanted and loved me. So I don't think I was ever afraid to be a parent, but I definitely have a fear of turning out the way that my mom turned out. Not that she was bad, but ultimately she left me early. I don't want to just address people who have lost their mother to unaliving themselves, but there's people who have moms that are here on this earth, but they're not there. And that's the type of a motherless child. And I can't really speak on the men's side of it, but I can speak on the women's side of it because I know what it's like to lose your mom. Everybody who's lost their mom or their mom is here but not there, they're affected differently, but also pretty similar. So losing a parent of the same gender is actually more detrimental. It's hard to say that when you aren't the other gender, losing the other gender, but studies shown that when you lose the same gender of parent, it affects you deeply, more deeper than it would if it was the opposite gender, if that makes sense. Yazzie, welcome in here. Glad to see your face, girl. Daughters who lose their mothers to unaliving themselves suffer significantly more. They're more likely to attempt to unalive themselves as well. I knew that because I suffered with that. I've been to the state hospital. Low-key, I loved it. I don't really care what anybody thinks about it. I loved it. And I think that because I was aware of the fact that my mom did what she did, I think it opened up an opportunity or like an option in my brain to make me feel like when things got bad enough, at least I could always do that. And so when things did get bad or anything, it was always something that popped into my brain. And that was something that I had to unlearn myself. And also, women who lose their mothers to unaliving themselves, I have to be so careful on this live. It's so difficult. That's what makes me stutter, is that I have to be really careful about how I use, what I use, when I use it, because the things that I talk about are really raw, they're really personal, and they're triggers for a lot of people. And I'm not trying to, it's just education. So I'm not trying to be vulgar with the things that I say. And when I don't have to think about what I'm saying, I can say it. But when TikTok is over here being a helicopter parent, it makes it really difficult. Have you guys ever heard of cyclical grief? Cyclical, is that what it's called? Cyclical grief. Anyways, it's like grief, but it's not linear. You know, when people go through grief, they go through like this, they're angry, or they're sad, they're angry, they're mad, they're whatever the line of it is. But cyclical grief is more, you go through it and then you loop through it. And women who lose their mothers who unaliving themselves are more than likely to go through that. Actually, they usually do go through that. Not that they're more than likely, they usually do go through that. Also, studies have also shown that there's a higher spike in depressive crises around the anniversary of, and they're more than likely to attempt the same thing that their mother did around the anniversary. And it's so crazy when I did all this research and I looked into all of this stuff, I didn't realize that all of these things apply to me. And like I said, I just thought I was just a little bit lost and like screwed up. And when you put all of this together, you're like, wow, you're screwed, right? Okay, cool. I'm stuck with trust issues, self-worth, mental health issues, and I don't know what it's like to be unconditionally loved. But that's not the case. It's still possible for you to live an abundant life, a beautiful, abundant life. You can parent yourself, you can heal, and you can grow. And you can be an amazing parent. Just because your parent did something doesn't mean that you are going to do the exact same thing that they did. So how do you fix this? How do you fix what was done to you? And that's where the real work comes into, because it's once you go through a situation of losing a parent, you're aware that I'm screwed right now. Something's going to come of it. You may not even really realize that you are as traumatized as you are until years go down or years pass by, but you're aware that this damaged you in a certain way. I don't really think that you can fix it. I don't think that it never goes away, but you can heal yourself and make it manageable. So then you don't have to dwell in what is or was, because even though this happened, it's not happening. And that's something that I have to constantly remind myself, is that this happened, but it's not happening. There's many ways that you can fix all of the things that you go through. People do therapy, people do meditation, and at sometimes there's medication that people have to do. And a lot of times people have to do that at first, because you just kind of have to learn to balance the side effects of a traumatic situation, which is fine. If that's what you need to help you get through what you're going through, then do whatever is going to help you, give you peace in that moment. Don't ever feel obligated to have to take a certain route to doing certain things just because somebody told you to. It's the same thing with what I say with what I'm doing, is this is the path I took. And it doesn't mean that this is going to work for you, but there could be bits and pieces of this that may work for you. I mean, there's always the option that you can ignore it. You can do that. I mean, it's still not going to go away. But for me, what I found that worked for me was I chose to educate myself on my mom. And I know that sounds really weird because she's no longer here, and I'm the one here and I'm the one suffering. So why would I need to educate myself on her? You know what I mean? That doesn't seem like it makes much sense, but I wanted to know more about the life that she had, what it was like growing up for her, her traumas, just everything that she had went through before me, during me, because all of those things played a part into why she ultimately made the choice that she made, and it altered her brain. So I needed to understand my mom a little bit better so that I could learn me also. Because before my mom was my mom, she was also Tina Smith. Ooh, that's hard to say. It's so weird to say her name because you never hear her name. I never hear her name. Nobody ever says her name. We actually don't ever really talk about my mom. Thank you, Dej. All of those things that she went through, she handled her stuff with grace. Let me tell you that. I know that when people talk about people unaliving themselves, they say that it's the most selfish thing that you can do. I truly feel like it was the most selfless thing that my mom thought she was doing. I think that she did that to try and save me from her. And so at first, yeah, I was angry. And I still get angry because there's so many times in my life where I talk to my mom's urn, you guys. There's times where I sit here and I'm working on my stuff and I just stare at her and I'm like, yeah, Mom, we got to do this, because she's the reason why I'm doing this. It's because of her that I make these videos, I reach out and I speak to people, and I don't give a shit if people think I don't need to share my story, or I don't need to talk about this, or you should keep this to yourself, or this isn't something you should put on here, you're capitalizing over. I don't give a shit. I wish somebody would have shared more stuff before, because then maybe I would have seen it and I'd still have a mom, but you didn't. So because you guys didn't, I'm going to take the initiative and I'm going to do it. You know how many times people reach out to me and they thank me? A lot, a lot. So I'm going to keep sharing my story. I'm going to keep talking about it because they say, you're never truly gone till the last person alive speaks your name. Well, I'm still here. And she didn't go through all that misery for nothing. So I'm going to continue to live my life, not just for me, but for her as well. And my mom was a helper. She was a healer. She was a nurse. She was the kindest person ever. She was not a bad mom. She was a really good mom. We didn't have a bad relationship. We were really close with each other. She was more like my best friend. So when she did what she did, it was like a double dagger to the heart because you promised me and we were really good friends, and I love my mom and I'm her only daughter. I'm the baby of the family. And so I don't have anybody else that I can relate to with her or the loss of her. If you educate yourself on anything, you gain a greater knowledge on what it is. And when you can have a greater understanding, that gives you peace and you can give yourself closure when you can't get it from someplace else that you want to get it from. In order to educate myself on my mom, I had to pick apart all of the traumas that I knew. Because, like I said, my mom's family, they weren't down with the brown. I don't know them. I do know last names. I know my aunts and uncles' names and stuff like that. And I do have an uncle who actually reached out to me. Side story. My uncle reached out to me like 2 weeks ago. He said he had been messaging me from time to time. What I've heard about this man is not good, you guys. It's horrible. Let's say that. He reached out to me after constantly reaching out and he had said, when you're ready, if you want to know the truth about your mom's upbringing from the 60s to the early whatever, he said, you have my number, give me the call, I'll tell you the real truth. And of course I call my dad because who else am I going to call? And I'm like, hey dad, mom's brother messaged me this. And then he was like, okay, well, I don't know what he can tell you that's going to make you feel better. And my dad and I, we went through kind of like a walkthrough and a talk about my mom and her past and her situation. My mom's dad was, he liked to throw him back, if you know what I mean. And he also was not kind. He also did a lot of things that were inappropriate. And my mom did not grow up a good childhood. She had less than no money and she pretty much ran away with my dad and they didn't like him because of the color of his skin. Not only was my mom's dad like that, her brother was also like that. My mom also lost her mom at a young age. So she kind of got away from all of the crap. And after my dad and I, we had a long conversation. I asked my dad too, and I'm like, the only thing that's interesting to me is I don't know my mom's side of the family. I know certain names of the people who are still here, but I don't know my mom's history. I don't know who or where they're from, like none of that. So he had done an ancestry and he was like, here, log into my ancestry. I have all this information. So there's a lot of information from my mom's family. So there's a lot more names that I found out from there. But as far as like knowing these individuals, they just don't seem like safe people for me to be around. And my mom made a really good life for herself. After talking to my dad, my mom came from like the worst of the worst. And she picked herself up. She went to college. She got her degree. She made a family. She married. She did really good for herself. And so I think the least thing that I can do is leave that door closed when she tried so hard to get away from it and make a life for herself. Because she's not here anymore. And if you guys cared about her, you would have hit her up or me 17 years ago. She's been gone for 17 years and you're just now coming out to try and talk to me? Why? You didn't come to her funeral. None of that stuff. I didn't get a letter from you. I didn't get nothing from you. So why would you come out now? And that's what I pretty much told him. I was like, with all due respect, I don't think there's anything that you can tell me that's going to benefit me, help me heal, or do any good for me in my life. I do know the truth of her past, and I think she worked really hard to close those doors and leave it behind her. So at this point, I think the best thing that I can do for her is keep those doors closed for me and for everybody else involved. And he read it, he never responded to me. I just feel like the only thing that he would have said would probably be like, oh, your mom was a liar, or she made this up, or she was really sick. I'm not trying to hear that. No, she wasn't. Because as far as I'm concerned, you don't know my mom. If I knew her all my life and I never knew you. You do not know my mom. So whatever you're going to tell me about her past, I ain't got time to hear it. It isn't going to benefit me in any kind of way. So knowing all of that with my mom, I picked apart her childhood traumas, her bipolar disorder. She had ADHD, anxiety, sleep disorders, and she had an addiction. And that's a lot to pull apart, right? Because all those things affect you in a different way. So I had to take them apart one by one. I didn't know how much your childhood traumas truly affect you as an individual, even though you may not remember them, they affect you. And you not remembering them is part of the trauma. I had no clue about bipolar disorder. That was really eye-opening for me because we thought she was under the influence because she had an addiction. And come to find out it was psychosis. And they do weird things. Like one time, my mom, I used to sleep in front of my apartment door. My dad was away at college, so it was just me, and I'm like 16. It was me and my friend Lisa that you guys have seen on here. I used to sleep in front of the apartment door because I didn't want her to leave because she would get up in the middle of the night and she would just do weird things. Like she was like, "Hey, Annie B," because they used to call me Annie B. My mom used to call me Annie B, and she'd be like, "Hey, Annie B, did you put those GI Joes around the apartment because your teachers are gonna ask you for spaghetti in the morning?" And I'm like, "What?" And then she would open up all her cans of Mountain Dew and she'd open them up, put them all over the apartment, put towels over the TV and blankets over this and just do all of the most random things that made no sense. And then she was always slurring her words when she was talking to us. And one time she went to the bathroom and Lisa was with me. And this is like 3 o'clock in the morning, mind you. And she's got one hand over half of her face and she's got makeup on the other side. And I'm like, "Mom, what are you doing?" And she's got her work shirt on inside out. And she's like, "I have to go to a meeting." I'm like, "It's 3 o'clock in the morning, Mom." "No, you don't." And she's like, "Yes, I do. I got to go to a meeting." And she'd get irate and angry and like things that just didn't make sense. And so it would take hours to try and calm her down to finally get her to bed. And when she got to that stance, it was like a whole 24 to 48 hours that she was not going to sleep. So I had to like watch over her, keep her corralled in the apartment. So I would skip school and I would just stay home and I just kicked it with my mom. She became like our best friend. My friends were like, "All right, Mom, Nita's mom's going a little bit crazy. We got to stay at Nita's house." "Cool, not a problem. Ain't nobody else there." I think the worst thing that she did was she went downstairs. We live in an apartment building. She went downstairs and she went into this handicapped guy's room, asked him for some rubber bands. He said he didn't have any. And she's like, "Oh, this will do." Grabbed the money off of his table, put it in the plant in the hallway. And the apartment manager found her outside in the dirt, just in a t-shirt. And these are the things that I had to deal with when I was like 16. At the time, I knew it was scary and I knew it was a big deal, but I didn't understand how big of a deal it really was. I didn't understand. We thought that was we thought she was on something. And then I was like 20, 28, 29, and I started looking into it and I'm like, what is bipolar? And so then I learned, hey, Hannah, I learned that there's multiple types of bipolar. Didn't know that they went into psychosis. Didn't know that they, you know, a lot of people don't, a lot of women, I think is like 30 years old, they get diagnosed with it. My mom was an overnight nurse. She worked in the neonatal intensive care. She worked with paraplegics, but she worked overnight. Well, now you're messing with your sleep schedule, which is going to make your bipolar even worse. That kind of explains a lot of it. But I couldn't imagine what it would have been like for her to wake up when her brain was a little bit better and being accused of being under an influence of something, but the whole time it was your mental health. And my mom and I went to neuroscience scientists. We went to all kinds of stuff to try and figure out what was going on with her because she knew something was wrong. And nobody could figure out what it was. And every time she'd go, they'd be like, "Nothing, nothing, nothing." She started having seizures. It was all kinds of crazy stuff, but nobody had any answers for it. So I think everybody just chalked it up to an addiction. And thankfully, I went through addiction. And I know that's wild to say, but there's so many things that I'm grateful for my addiction because it opened my eyes up. It gave me a new understanding. And now I can understand why my mom felt the need to do what she did. Because unless you are that low and that desperate in life, you will never understand why you think that is an option, the best option. Because me too. But because I knew what it felt like to lose a mom in that stance or in that way, I promised I would never do that to my kids. So no matter how much I have to suffer in this world, no matter how miserable I am in this world, at least I'm here. And I'll never bring myself to the point of doing that ever again, because I have attempted it, but I'll never do that again. So after digging apart all of these things, learning about that, ADHD, that was another thing I had to learn about. I knew I had it, but people always think, oh, ADHD, that means you're really hyper and oh, squirrel. I hate that saying, by the way. Yeah, she's very squirrel. That's not cool. That's annoying. I think that's so annoying when people are like, oh yeah, just thoughts everywhere. ADHD is so much more than being distracted. There's emotional dysregulation. You are impulsive as can be. Half the time you do stuff, you don't remember why you're doing it. You're not really thinking of the consequences of the things that you're doing. And you're just on go mode in every aspect. So when I learned that, that's where the emotional dysregulation comes in from. She always seemed very agitated or like anxious. She'd get really anxious when things need to get done. I didn't know that. I didn't know that ADHD did that. And I understood why would she have anxiety. And that's when I broke down, okay, she had anxiety from this, that did this, and this caused from this, and this came from this, and this. I was like, all right, cool. And what that actually did for me was it made me realize that it wasn't me. And when your parent does that, when your mother, I'm going to be so direct, when a daughter's mother chooses to leave this earth, that sucks. It's embarrassing. It's so embarrassing for me to speak about it. It makes you feel like you are not important. And now, because the most important person in your life chose to leave you, anybody can go. And everybody's gonna go. I don't trust nobody. Yeah, you say you like me today until tomorrow when you're mad enough and then you're gonna go. Not only that, but every time I get into an argument with anybody and they're mad, like when my kids, if they go into another room, like my older children, if I get into an argument with them and they go into another room, hey Macy, my first thought is like, I'm low-key panicking and I'm listening because I always think that if I make somebody upset enough that they're gonna unalive themselves. And that's also not true. But I somehow took all of the blame for what she was doing. And I'm sure my siblings feel similar, and I'm sure my dad feels similar. But I took all of the blame for why she did what she did. And it was like I was a bad kid, or I didn't do something good enough, or I was just too much, or, and learning her traumas, learning her mental health helped me understand that it had nothing to do with me. And there was nothing I could have done. And I did the best that a kid could do. And matter of factly, I did more than what most kids could do. Because what 16-year-old, and there's plenty out there that won't, and they will leave when their parent gets difficult. Because she wasn't easy to deal with, guys. She was freaking annoying sometimes. And it was like having a little sister and having to babysit her because you just never knew what she was going to do, what she was going to take, what she was going to break, when she was going to lose it, if she was going to sleep, how long she was going to sleep for. Like, it was just insane. And a lot of people don't even know that. Like my family, close to my family, the friends, my mom's friends, they don't even know that. Like I realized that we didn't share much of that story with people, just that they know that she ultimately ended up unaliving herself. And I feel like she didn't want to put the burden on you or others. Yeah, Ty, I understand that now. I didn't then. But I feel like like I said, I think that was her last selfless act that she did for us, not to hurt us. And never speaking about it and never talking about like with my brothers and my dad and stuff, that was really hard to even come to that realization. So I kind of had to do it myself. Eventually got to a point where my dad and we sat down and we talked about stuff. And he has always said from day one, there's nothing you could have done. There's nothing you could have done. And I'm like, yeah, but if I wouldn't have, because before she did it, I told my dad everything. He didn't know a lot of stuff that was going on. And I told him, and that kind of was like the end of their marriage. And so he's always reassured me that it was not my fault and there was nothing that I could have done. Then that fear of becoming that parent, even to this day, you guys, there's things that I'll do when I was watching one of my videos, right? This whole hand situation idea. I have a video of my mom and she's recording for nursing school and she does this. I have a lot of mannerisms that my mom used to do. And I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, wait, you're not her. You aren't her. Those things happened to her. They didn't happen to me. And because those things happened to her, the side effect of that was the decision that she made. And she didn't make that decision because you didn't do enough. She made that decision because she felt like she was doing too much and it was the least she could do. It's not going to be easy to look into all those things. It's really difficult because you're going to learn things about your parent that you're not going to want to know. Nobody wants to hear, nobody wants to know, and nobody really wants to understand the harsh things that your parents are going through or had to go through or had to face. That's really hard to sit with, knowing how much my mom suffered and struggled right in front of my eyes. And I didn't know how bad it was. But I gained a lot of knowledge. I gained a lot of understanding. And because I did that, I gave myself closure. Thank you, Ty. Can you? Because honestly, I'm shivering inside. Like, I feel like right here is shaking because I'm surprised I'm not crying right now because this is the worst thing that has ever happened to me in my entire life. The least expected thing that I never imagined would ever happen to me. And I can't believe I've lived 17 years without her. I miss her every day. And I just feel like nobody understands how important she was to me. She was just, and it sounds like she wasn't a good person or she was so selfish, but she was such a good person, you guys. Like, she was so kind. She didn't judge nobody for anything. It didn't matter what you looked like, what you had, what you didn't have. She was just the kindest person. And it breaks my heart that as many people as she saved in this life, nobody saved her. And I wish I would have known better because I would have saved her. If I could tell her I'm sorry a million times, I would, but I can't. And I think I gotta live with that for the rest of my life because nobody was as close to her in that time as I was. My dad, she loved my dad. My dad and her were super close. You know what I mean? Obviously, he knew a side of my mom I didn't. But as far as, like, she didn't have friends around or anything like that. So, yeah, I lost my best friend and my mom that day. And everybody just continued upon their life. And then you continue to see, like, my one brother gets all of this attention. And people were like, your mom and me so proud of you. He didn't even talk to her for years before she passed. And you guys don't know what he's up to behind her back and what he has done to me as her daughter and his little sister, knowing what we have went through together. And instead of acknowledging me as her daughter, all they do is give him props. And he wouldn't even freaking talk to her. He wouldn't come around. She was too much. And that's why how many 16-year-olds? He was like 21 when that happened with my mom. He was big. He understood. He chose not to because that was just too much to deal with. And to not have anger towards my brother for that, yeah, I do. I'm not going to lie. Not just because of that. I think I forgave him at some point. And then within the last couple of years, he did some dirty shit. And it just kind of opened up the doorway for, like, yeah, screw you, dude. Because we all got traumatized from it. But that doesn't give you a right to do those things and then flip the script. That's another story for another day. And eventually, guys, we will get to it. But that is super deep and it's really hard to hear because it's crazy. But now that you educate yourself on your parents and their trauma and, their mental health crises and the things that they went through, and you picked it apart and now you've gained some type of closure. Now, what do you do? What do you do for you? Because now you learned everything about them. You need to get your own closure for yourself. That's the best closure I think that I could get from everything, was just learning about what all these diagnoses were, all of the things that she went through, all of her trauma, understanding Tina Smith as the person that she was and not just my mom. But what I had to do was separate myself from her. We all are connected to our moms. We're connected to our parents, but really, we're really connected to our moms. And especially if you are a daughter and your mother unalives herself, you're just connected to them. I don't know how to explain it. You guys know, you guys got moms. And there's nothing like your mom. And being her only daughter, she's the closest and the only woman I could relate myself to. So I had to separate myself from her. I came from my mom, but I'm not my mom. And I do not have to carry her trauma. I don't have to carry her pain, and I don't have to carry the weight of all the troubles that she had in life, and that it's okay for me to just be Anita and not be Tina's daughter. Nobody's going to be able to fix that for me. So I have to understand myself. I have to understand my thoughts, my feelings, my likes, my dislikes, my emotions. And that's where the parenting yourself comes in. I don't have my mom to help me figure out who the hell I am. I don't have my lifelong advocate. So I got to figure out who I am, how I work, what I want, and what I don't want. And when I got better at understanding myself, it was easier for me to recognize when I was responding out of trauma. Things would happen to me if my response wasn't necessarily because of that certain thing, if that makes sense. Like certain things would happen and I would respond in a certain way, and it may not be appropriate to what it was that was happening to me. And I had to realize that when I went through situations where I felt abandoned, because that's the number one thing I felt like I had to deal with was, hey, Yan, abandonment issues and trust issues or attachment issues, whichever way it works, abandonment, attachment issues. I had to pause and I had to ask myself, is this true? Because your mind works when people are doing certain things to you and you feel like they're abandoning you or they're turning their back on you or you can't trust them anymore. I had to really think about that overthinking. I had to stop in those moments. And that's so hard to do. It takes a lot of practice to be able to stop in that moment and be like, is this true? Or am I relating this to past or a past situation? And a lot of times I realized that I was relating it to um, a past situation or a past feeling that I had in a past situation. And it felt similar to this. So now I'm feeling like, oh yeah, this is happening to me right now. They're about to abandon me or they're abandoning me or, you know, um, I don't know if I don't think I got too attached to people. I think that I was too detached. I wouldn't allow myself to get past a certain point. Like, in order for me to truly get attached to you, we gotta do a lot. Like, in a relationship standpoint, not like friends, but like in a relationship standpoint, in order for you to be an important person, it's gotta be months. Like, it's gotta be like 4 months. Otherwise, like, it takes a lot for me to get attached to somebody. And if I feel like you are going to hurt me on a deep level, I'm so quick to pull the plug. I'll walk away so freaking fast. And that is part of the fear of abandonment. That's just kind of like one example of like learning to parent yourself and learning to be aware of your emotions when they're happening and if you're relating to something else. And people are like, well, that's a lot to think of in that moment. Yeah, kind of. But chances are, if you're already dealing with traumas in certain situations like this, your brain works that fast. Like my brain really works that fast. Somebody can say something or do something to me, and I'm thinking in my head what I'm thinking in my head, but I can be saying something else. And the whole time I'm thinking in my head, I'm looking at you and I'm looking in your eyes and I'm figuring out why you feel the need to do this. And the whole time I'm spewing out whatever the hell I'm saying to you. So I can process it that fast. And a lot of people who go through traumas, they're good at that. They know they can do that. And if you have the ability to do that, you have the ability to slow yourself down and really pull apart your emotions of why you're doing what you're doing. That was a big lifesaver for me. That was a big Anita saver for me. Not even just a lifesaver, but a good saver for Anita. And I put forth that effort to suffer a little bit. I love you so much. Thank you. And that really helped me set myself free because I was no longer attached to Tina's daughter. I had Tina Smith as my mom, and I am Anita Smith separate from my mom. And I am not going to be her. I can learn from her and I can live for her. But in order for me to do that, I have to actually separate my emotions, my thoughts, and my traumas from her and just live my own life. But yeah, you're going to have to pull apart that. You're going to have to do your research, educate yourself, and dig into whatever, whoever. My mom is not here. There's a lot of motherless daughters whose moms are still here. And honestly, the protocol is going to be different for you because you may have to face that person again. I can call anybody any number in this world. I can write a million letters if I want to. It doesn't matter where I go. My mom will never be there. She will never write me back, and she'll never pick up that phone. So it's all on me. And if I don't want to pass this on to my children, because I'll be damned if my daughter's got to deal with this shit. Then I got to do whatever I got to do to make sense of the nonsense that I had to deal with. But I've learned through this whole process with every single thing, you know what? It sucks my mom's gone. But man, it's the biggest lesson I've ever learned. Biggest blessing because I've learned so much from that. I mean, I've learned that people come and go. But no matter who comes and no matter who goes, guess what? You're still okay. As long as you got you, you're going to be okay. And you may not like it, and it may suck, and it may hurt. And you know what? It's going to suck. It's going to hurt. But you're going to be okay. I wouldn't say it gets better. I don't think it gets fixed, but it's easier to manage. And I think that in itself is a blessing because that's a gift. That's some strength. That's resilience. That's something you can't get from a book. I can go to a therapist. You can go to a therapist. And they're going to be like, yeah, I went to Harvard and I had some of the best books in the world. And I had this number one professor and they told me this and this and this. So I'm well educated in this because I've studied addiction and I've studied mental health. Cool. I've lived it. And I picked myself up and I went through it. I didn't just mask it. No hate on anybody with medication because I was on medication for a while too. But that was temporary. You don't need to be on half this shit forever. I went through it. I lived it. I experienced it. I hurt through it. I picked myself up. I flipped it. I alchemized it. And those very things that caused me the most pain in life are my strength. I don't know if there is anything in this world that I can't get through. Matter of fact, I know I can. When you lose the most important person in your life by choice, when they choose to, that's rough on your soul, that's rough on your heart, that's rough on your brain, that's rough on your body. And I managed to pick myself up. And then I went through an addiction and I pulled myself out of that. Nobody did that for me. I did that. And I rebuilt my life. It was like the most major things in my life taught me how strong I truly am. And when I started coming out here on my live streams, and I'm like, yeah, it's going to be hard days and people are going to say things and things are going to make you feel so hard. But so what? What's going to happen? The worst thing in my life has already happened. I'm Gucci. I'm going to be good. I can get through it. It will be tough, but I'm going to be okay. So my biggest trauma is my biggest blessing. And I've learned to love myself the way a mother would love me. Unconditionally, I gave myself grace. I was patient and I forgave myself. Because I wasn't perfect in anything, but I needed forgiveness for multiple things. Lessons are always hidden blessings. Yes, Ty. And people will be like, no, I don't think some things, there's no lesson to be learned. That's not true. There's always a lesson to be learned. It may not be a lesson that you felt like you needed to learn, but give it time. And you will learn that, yeah, it is. There was something to learn from that. Like, it sucked that my mom did what she did. What did I learn from that? I learned that my mental health was important. I learned that I needed to speak up. I learned to be kind to people. I learned to be open. I learned to be forgiving. And I learned to not judge people. That's a hell of a lot of lessons to learn. And the number one thing is I learned that I can do it. If I can make it through that, anything I freaking want in this world, it's right here at the palm of my hand. I can do it. And through all of that mess and chaos, because it wasn't super easy to do all of this stuff. There's so many times that I just sat by myself and cried and bawled, and screamed, screamed like a maniac because it's so frustrating, that hopelessness feeling of you want something so freaking bad and it's almost like it's right here. And for a split second, you can see it, you can feel it, you can hear it, you can smell it, you can taste it, and then it's gone. That's what it feels like on my really rough days. Because when I really want to call, the only person I really want to call is my mom. And also at work, this one of my coworkers, she was cooking food in the microwave and it smelled good. And she's like, "Oh, yeah, my mom made some meatballs." And I was like, "Dang, I wish I had a mom. Those meatballs smell good. Tell your mom I will pay her to cook me some food." And it's like those little things that you have to deal with every day. Yeah, dang, I'll never have a mom again. And I had to learn that really young. And there's things that I wish that I could have done with my mom. I wanted her to see. She never got to see me be a mom. She never got to see me get married. She never got to see me turn my life around. She never got to see me speak up or speak out. I don't even know if she ever would have expected this from me. And is she proud of me for this? Is this something she would want for me to do? I don't know. I'll never know, but I guess I know. Yeah, I guess I know. I think that she would want that. I don't think that she wanted her life to just be that. She wanted to live for a purpose, so her purpose lives on. And once I started healing, I could become the mother that I wish I had. And it's not that I didn't ever have a good mom, but after 17, I sure as hell didn't. But now that I healed myself, I can be there for my kids. And it's a struggle because you see what I'm going through with my son. And I just think that he's kind of like I was. There's nothing I can really do to help him. I can help guide him, and I will continuously help guide him. But he's got to do the rest of the work himself. But I'm not going to leave him in this time. My mom left me in this time. She left me in the worst way possible. When I was in a treatment facility, I only got out because she didn't make it. And now I know exactly what not to do. I know when things start happening, this needs to be addressed. But you're never stuck. You're worth it. You're loved. And you can parent yourself, heal yourself, and become that parent that you want to be, the parent that you desperately needed. Never be ashamed of anything that you go through, no matter how ugly it may seem, how difficult it is. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to embrace. Nobody else is going to be you. Nobody else can make it through what you went through. Only you know what it was like to go through what you went through. And you made it here. So there's something inside of you that's supposed to be here. You're winning. You're never losing. As long as you keep going, you're still winning. So love yourself the way a mother would. Give yourself some grace. Be kind to yourself. Uplift yourself. Speak life into yourself. If you don't have a mother, be your mother. You deserve it. You deserve to be loved too. Now that you've learned how to love yourself, now you can move with love and you can give your love to this world. And what better outcome can you get? Yeah, our life is no longer here, but there was so much knowledge gained, so much evolution gained, and that's the whole point of life, is you're supposed to come down here as a spiritual being into this body, and you're intended to feel all of the feelings of this world and evolve through it and keep going and still move with love, regardless of the shit that you've been through. And I love that I know that, and I love that I did that. I didn't always know that, and that wasn't always my intention to do that, but if anything good was to come from my mom's situation is that she made one hell of a strong daughter. I'm grateful for the mom that I had. I'm not angry at her. I get angry that I don't have her, but I'm not angry at her. I wish she was here, Yazzie. If you met my mom, you guys, she was like, okay, first off, I think I get a lot of my weirdness from my mom because she was like loud. She was funny. She was just, she talked a lot. Laughed a lot. She was like a nerd. And she's this little short, white, red-headed lady with pretty green eyes. And she was so white. But she would try to be down. You guys know Darren's dance grooves? One time she bought Darren's dance grooves and she was trying to learn how to dance. She wouldn't let us watch her. So funny, yo. And we'd come downstairs and we used to have like this railing like this. So as little kids, we'd sit there, we'd creep. And she was trying to do bye 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 in sync. And she was like, "Stop watching me." It's so funny. She had no rhythm, but she tried to be down. Anything I ever needed from her, whenever I needed it, she would show up for me. I think that was so hard when she passed. And then I found out I was pregnant like 2 months after she passed. So if I wouldn't have had my oldest son, I guarantee you guys I would not be sitting here talking to you today. That first year of losing my mom was so hard. Like, when I think back about it, it seems so dark. Like I barely remember a lot of it. I don't remember her funeral. I remember looking at her. I don't remember, I spoke at her funeral, but I don't remember what I said. I remember my brother talking at her funeral, and I remember his suit, jacket, whatever, was so big, his shoulders looked funny. I don't remember what he said. I don't, I know like one of my sisters sang, I don't remember what the song was. It just seems hollow. Like when I think it just seems hollow, I remember that we all went out afterwards and we ate, and I remember seeing my mom's best friend sitting at a table all by herself, and that broke my heart. They were best friends. She came from Florida or Colorado, I can't remember where she was living. But that also, like, it broke my heart. And then everybody went home. So anyways, that's really what I wanted to touch on today, guys. I really wanted to shed the light on the fact that moms are super important in your life, and they're vital for creating life. And it's super important to have them in your life. But if you don't have a mom in your life, you can still live an abundant life. You don't need to be miserable for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean that it's the end of your time. It doesn't mean that there's no potential there for you. It just means that you're going to have to work a little bit harder for yourself, and you're going to have to heal yourself, but it's going to have to be a conscious decision, and you're going to have to intentionally heal, because I feel like naturally you're going to not want to, because it's really difficult to accept something that you don't want to accept. Appreciate you guys for listening to me. It was really hard. And for a while there, my jaw was shaking. I was like, I calmed down now. The trembling went away. I don't know how well I'll be able to talk about every single thing that we went through with her and how we got through what we got through, because I realized I think I realized when I start speaking about my mom how crazy it is and just how traumatic that truly was. Because in those moments, I didn't realize that it was that traumatizing. But after it's all said and done and over with, I'm like, holy shit, that was a lot. And then after I got sober and I got off of my ADHD medications and I was no longer a zombie, it was kind of really apparent to me how much I didn't have a parent. I just wanted to say that because I said a parent to me. I didn't realize how traumatic and how important it was to me. You hear people talking about daddy issues, but you don't really hear people talking about daughters with mommy issues. And I didn't know that I had them. I didn't realize that a lot of my reactions in this world, or my traumas and my emotions to the things that was going on, was because of my mom. I didn't realize I suffered from abandonment issues because of her. I didn't realize that, you know, I'm a decent looking person. I didn't know that I struggled with my self-worth because of her. I thought it was because everybody else was assholes to me growing up. But I learned that, you know what? It, it kind of affected me. Hope that if people are out there struggling with mental health and you are struggling with addiction or trauma, that it's never too late. You can pick yourself up from anything. You can always heal. As long as you're breathing, you still have an opportunity, and it's never too late for you. So don't give up. And if you think that that's the answer to end your pain, it's not the answer. All you're going to do is pass it down. So if you don't want to deal with it, stop and ask yourself if you want your kids to deal with it without you, because that's what's going to have to happen. And if you're on the opposite side, like I am, just know that you can get through it. It's not your fault, and there was nothing you could have done because you were just a kid. And even if you weren't a kid, if somebody gets to the point where they decide that they need to unalive themselves, they must be feeling pretty low in life. Does everybody in here have a mom that's alive? I'm just curious because I want to know. Hey, Gabby, welcome in. Gabby, do you have a mom? I'm asking if everybody has a mom. Ty, you have a mom? Do you talk to her? You have a mom, Gabby? You guys talk? Oh, that's good, Renee. I do, and she's my bestie. We talk and we hang out. That's cool. I hope you guys appreciate your moms. It sounds like you guys all appreciate and love your moms very much. That's cool. I love the fact that you guys have good relationships with your moms. I have a good relationship with my mom's ashes. She hardly talks shit back. Best secret keeper in the world. I appreciate you guys for coming in here. Thank you so much. If you're watching this and you're not on my live stream, like this video, comment, share it out to as many people as you can. and I'll see you guys next Friday.